Hello everybody, this is Mr. Crozier. We're just going to get going on our first set of notes for the year here, so I just want to make sure that everybody out there is either printing this out and following along with me as we go, or copying down as we go here on your own separate sheet of paper. So you want to be sure that you're keeping all your notes together in a separate place in your binder so that you have them to recall on later. So we're going to get going with some definitions here first. So first of all, we've got what we call our natural numbers. So these are all the numbers that we count with. So they're going to include 1, we got 8 over 4 in our list, 3 and 4. So these are often going to be called counting numbers. Let me head to my pencil. Counting numbers. So we see a fraction in our list, but we want to remember here that this 8 over 4 I can divide out into 2. So this is a natural number because 8 over 4 is equal to 2. So next on our list here we've got our whole numbers. So this is the exact same number as above in our list, but whole numbers are going to include one more number than before, so we're going to add 0 to our list here. Alright, next is integers. So this group of numbers, just like before, includes 0, but we're also going to add on to this list all of our opposite numbers as before, so all the negative numbers that go with that. So we see a couple fractions here as well, but we notice that negative 6 over 2 will reduce down to negative 3, and 4 over 2 is going to reduce down to 2. So just remember, integers are going to be negative whole numbers, 0, and positive whole numbers in order to make up our list of integers. So the next definition we have here is our rational numbers. So this group is going to include every number that can be written as a fraction. We are going to write down here in this blank. So anything that can be written as a fraction. So we see a bunch of decimals in that list too, but if we were to rewrite those numbers, it is possible to write them as a fraction. Alright, so first we're going to start with classifying some numbers here. So we start out with 10 over 5, and we notice that we can divide 10 by 5, which is going to give us 2. So we just want to check back before and see which groups 2 fits in here too. So we notice that we have it at the very top of our list, so 2 is going to be a natural number. We see it in our list of whole numbers, so it will also be a whole number. It's in our list of integers, and we see it written as a fraction beforehand, so it is also going to be included in our list of rational numbers. Next we have a decimal, 0.45. So if we were to rewrite this, we notice that we're dealing with the hundredths place here, where our 5 is. So the denominator of this thing will be 100, and we're dealing with 45 of those hundredths. We can reduce that down, but we're not going to worry about that right now. All we are worried about is noticing that this thing is a rational number, because I can rewrite that as a fraction. It's not going to be an integer, a whole number, or a natural number, because we notice that it is not a whole number, as we see above for all the other groupings. Alright, so 0, we notice up above we saw 0 in most of our lists, except for the natural numbers. So we're going to leave natural number out for 0. So 0 is going to be a whole number, an integer, and a rational number. And finally, moving on for number 4 here, we see negative 1/3. So what we can do is look at that. It can be written as a fraction. It's given to us as a fraction, so we know that this is a rational number. And just like number 2 with 0.45, how we said that was 45 100ths, well, we notice that we can't reduce this down any further into a whole number. So it's not going to be included in any other of our lists, so it is strictly a rational number. Alright, our next definition here is going to deal with absolute value. So absolute value is the distance the number is from 0 if we were to draw these other numbers on a number line. So the symbol for absolute value is just our number that we're dealing with inside of a set of bars here. And one thing we want to add to this is that absolute value, I'm going to abbreviate that here, is measured as distance. So actually let me get rid of that. So since this is a distance, we just want to remember that distance is always positive. So the absolute value of 3, since it is 3 units away from 0 on a number line, the absolute value will be 3. Or another way we can write that is that 3 inside of those absolute value bars equals 3, and both of those things are true because 3 is a distance of 3 spaces from 0 on a number line. So the absolute value of -4, since it is 4 spaces away from 0, is going to be 4. So remember, like above, we said that distance is always positive. So the absolute value of -4 is the distance -4 is from 0. So just like before, we've got our absolute value bars here, -4. The absolute value of it is 4 because of that distance of 4 it is away from 0. So we're going to try going through some absolute values here. So if we're asked what the absolute value of -13 is, we'll just remember these absolute values are distances, and distances are always positive. So the absolute value of -13 will be 13. Moving on, we've got the absolute value of 0. Well, if we think about how far 0 is away from 0 on a number line, 0 is itself, right? So there's no distance between 0 and 0. So the absolute value of 0 is just 0. So we're not only going to see absolute values with whole numbers or integers, we can also have absolute values of rational numbers, anything that can be written as a fraction. So the absolute value of 3/5, since it is 3/5 of a unit away from 0 on the number line, will be just itself, 3/5. And moving on to number 4, just like before, we have a rational number here. It happens to be a negative rational number, but if we take its absolute value, its distance from 0, it is just 5/8 of a unit away from 0 on the number line. So the absolute value of 5/8 is equal to 5/8. Alright, so we're going to see some of these things put out into expressions or equations sometimes that we need to solve. So what we're going to do first is take any absolute values that we can and then take care of our operations after that. So first things first, for number 5 here, we've got the absolute value of -5 is going to be 5, and we'll just bring down everything else. The absolute value of 2 is 2, so now all we need to do is just add those things together now that we can. So the absolute value of -5 plus the absolute value of 2 is going to be equal to 7. And these will work with any operations that we have. So notice we're not adding anymore, we are subtracting. So we're going to take care of our absolute values first. So the absolute value of -5 is 5. Bring down our subtraction. And the absolute value of -2 is just 2. So here we've got 5 minus 2 is going to give us 3. Same thing as above, we just want to make sure we're taking our absolute values first. So I've only got one absolute value going on in this one, so we're going to bring down our 17 plus, and the absolute value of -3 is going to be just 3. This is easy enough to do now. We take our 17 and add it with 3, and we get 20. And one more here just for good measure. So remember, take your absolute values first. We got the absolute value of negative 15. Will give us 15. Tack on that 10 that we still were in our expression here. And 15 plus 10 is going to give us 25. All right, so the last little bit here, we're dealing with practicing putting these numbers on a number line. So we notice that it takes 4 spaces here to equal to 1 unit. So 1 1/2 will head out to, whoops, come on back. We'll head out to 1, and since each of these dots is basically a quarter, we are going to head 2 more dots here, and here is our point A, 1 1/2. So before we start putting any others on here, just remember we want to take absolute values first. So the absolute value of negative 1 is going to give us 1. So we're going to put our dot here at 1 and label that point B, just like it is up here. All right, so here's where some review is going to come. We're going to be adding fractions here. So negative 1/4 plus negative 1/4 is going to give us negative 2/4, which we can reduce down even further, and that will be negative 1/2. So just remember, each of these dots is 1/4, so 2 quarters will be equal to 1/2, so we're going to go to the left since it's negative, and we are going to go to negative 1/2, and there's our point C on our number line. So now it's just all about remembering how many of these dots equals a whole, and we notice it's 4, so the absolute value of 3/4 will be 3/4, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3 of these fourths away from 0. So that's going to be our point D. All right, in here we've got our fraction inside of our absolute value bars. For E, we have 8/4. So just remember that that is going to reduce down to 2. And if I have 2 and I take away 3 of whatever I have 2 of, we're going to be in the negatives. So that will be negative 1 here. So we're going to find negative 1 on our number line. And that was point E. And then final one here, we're starting with our negative 4 and adding 4 to that. So if I have negative some number and I add the same amount back to it, that's just going to cancel each other out, and that is going to give us 0. So our final point that we are going to plot here on our number line is going to be 0, and that is point F. So if you're ever drawing on a number line, just make sure that you're labeling the points as you go. Alright, so that's all we have for our notes for today. So now that we have our notes, you can go ahead and use these on the assignment, and that will be the next thing that pops up when you click Next on Canvas. So you are free to use these notes on your assignment, and please complete that and turn it into the assignment 1-1 turn-in bin once you finish that up. So remember, you can either print out that PDF and complete your assignment on that printout and then take a picture and turn it in, or do it on a separate sheet of notebook paper, and then you can also take a picture of that and turn it in. Alright, we'll be back tomorrow for lesson 1-2, lesson 2 of the year.